What up guys, welcome to my new Demon Hunter build guide. In this guide I will present to you the build that all the rank 1 players are playing. This is a build that just recently started to get very popular. At first I was skeptic about it, but for the last few days I've been playing it. And guys, this is amazing. This build plays quite differently from what we are used to, and as such it might take a few matches for you to get the hang of it. Without further ado, let's get to it. As you can see, this build completely disregards I-Beam. You will only be using I-Beam in order to get into demonic form. You will do very little damage with it, such little damage that it is worth it to cancel the channel with Essence Break. All you want to take out of your I-Beam is, as I said, your demonic form and your Collective Anguish activation. This talent only requires you to cast I-Beam, it will not do more damage if you keep channeling, and as such, Collective Anguish damage and healing is exactly the same whether you cancel I-Beam or not. If you have seen my previous build guide videos, you know that I never ever spec out of I-Beam. It is just such a fun button to press. If you manage to get the entire channel off, it is incredibly rewarding. You do so much damage and there are so many synergies with this ability, but the reality is, all it takes to disrupt your entire burst window is a simple interrupt during your I-Beam channel. Being interrupted will get you locked out of Chaos Magic School, and as such, most of your damage abilities, although remember that you can still Blade Dance even if interrupted, this is a physical school ability, so what you can do if you get locked out of Chaos is cast your Blade Dance right away. During the remainder of the silence duration, feel free to use Throw Glaive as well. It is also a physical damage ability, even though we make it to Chaos damage with our build. And also remember that all three of your mobility skills can still be used, whether or not you are Chaos locked. As soon as the interrupt wears off, you still have 2 seconds of demonic. To make the most of it, immediately cast your Essence Break and follow it up by 2 Chaos Strikes. After that, you will no longer be in demon form. However, remember what I told you earlier, to use Blade Dance right away, and the reason for that is that by now you will have the cooldown back, and we will be able to fit it within the Essence Break window. So this was just to explain you what to do in case you get interrupted. I should have explained it in the other build videos, but I always forget about something, and now in the build where I-Beam is just a catalyst, is where I am actually remembering to do it. Just bear with me and join me in my journey to constantly be trying to find order within the chaos. I didn't switch to Demon Hunter just because the entire notion of order within chaos is quite fascinating to me, because the one word I can use to describe my mind is entropy. And by now you are probably wondering why the heck is this guy talking about science stuff? I thought this was supposed to be another Demon Hunter guide. Well, that's exactly what I want to get to. I want you to not only strive playing this class, but to also have a lot of fun doing so. And the best way to do that is to get to the point where every button you press feels like second nature, where within the chaos of battle, you feel like you are as fluid and as adaptive as water, just like Bruce Lee used to say. This entire build is all about it. You need to be fast thinking, able to immediately react to what the enemy is doing, sometimes even predict what he is going to do, decide when you should go offensive or defensive, measuring how threatening is the situation so that you don't end up spending your defensives without needing to, and so on. So here is how this build works. I already explained you what to do with I-Beam. It is just a catalyst to initiate your burst window. Feel free to cancel its channel animation with Essence Break. I actually advise you to do that, so that you reduce the window where the enemy can interrupt you, and thus completely disrupt your burst. After that, the new big interaction we have with this build is that now, every time you use Immolation Aura, your next Fell Rush damage will be increased by 400%. This means that your Fell Rush is now, every 30 seconds, a very strong AoE damage cooldown. As you might be guessing, this will slightly hinder our mobility through Fell Rush, as we will be spending 1 every 30 seconds for the damage effect. However, check out the next talent. Our Vengeful Retreat's cooldown is being reduced by 5 seconds. This not only makes up for the extra Fell Rush we have to spend, but it also interacts incredibly well with Glimpse. Glimpse is the one thing that is allowing us to remain competitive. After all the self-healing nerfs we have gotten, we need to be using this PvP talent to its best potential, and having its cooldown reduced by 5 seconds is a major defense buff for us. Also, every time you use Vengeful Retreat, you will also be generating 80 Fury over 10 seconds. Since our Vengeful Retreat is going to be on a 20-second cooldown, you will have a 50% uptime on this Fury generating effect. That is incredibly amazing, as it will allow us to get a few more Chaos Strikes in, and thus increasing our damage by quite a bit. It will also allow you to use Fayr option and Chaos Nova freely, without the fear of hindering your damage output. Momentum is amazing. This is a flat 80% damage boost to all our damage. Since Fell Rush, Vengeful Retreat and the Hunt proc this, it will have a very high uptime, and as such our damage will be greatly amplified by this. As you can see, we do use Essence Break in this build, because even though we are using our I-Beam as just a catalyst, it will still align perfectly well with the 40-second Essence Break window, making our burst possible. Now, if you have seen my previous video, where I deeply explain why Netherwalk is a new player trap, then you will most likely be finding it odd that I have in fact selected it. Well, as you might have heard in that video, the main factor for me to exclude Netherwalk is the fact that we would otherwise have to spend 3 points just to get it. Critical Chaos has very little impact in a Throwglaive build, however, in this build we still have to get it just to get to the left side of the talent tree, and guys, getting a mobile ice block for 1 point, of course it is worth it. Now remember that while netherwalking, you are still pretty much useless to your team, you can still be rooted in place. All this really does is make you immune to damage and boost your movement speed so that you can reset the fight or reposition better. You should look at this almost as if it were a rogue vanish ability. Don't wait for the moment you're going to die to use this. You wanna use it to either completely neglect someone's burst window, pretty much how a Retri Paladin should use Bubble for example, not for when you are at a 1% HP, because by then your healer will be getting cross-crowd controlled for longer than 6 seconds, and guess what? You'll get out of Netherwalk still at 1% HP, and I'm pretty sure you know what happens next. With that said, in this build there are 2 points that you can switch around freely, one of them being the Netherwalk I'm talking about, the other one being Burning Hatred. These 2 points can be switched to whatever you like. There are a few good options for this depending on your playstyle. Of course, the one I recommend is the one you see on your screen, where we get Netherwalk and Burning Hatred. This talent, just like Tactical Retreat, will greatly increase your Fury generation, making your gameplay much more fluid. If you have both of these 2 talents and you are using them correctly, you will never ever be Fury starved. You will always have something to press. In fact, until you get used to it, I bet that you will often cap your Fury. Another viable option would be to get Chaotic Transformation and Looks Can Kill. However, since we are not getting all the other I-Beam modifiers, the impact of these 2 talents will be much less than what it would be in another build. I really don't think it is worth it. However, as I always say, if this turns out to be fun to you, then completely disregard what everybody else says. This is a game, it is meant to be fun, and as such, fun takes priority much higher than min-maxing. Another option is to get Glaive Tempest. I know that a lot of you are big fans of this ability, some of you are even still using Fel Barrage, and that is completely okay. If you are having fun doing it, keep doing it no matter what. To get here, you'll have to use your first point on Chaos Theory, and then the second one to get either one of these skills, whichever you like the best. Another option would be to get improved Chaos Strike and improved Fell Rush. The first one will have a very small impact on your damage, and the second one might be tempting, since this is an unbound Chaos build, and thus it strives in boosting Fell Rush. However, I have to say that this 20%, when considering that we are already talking about a 400% modifier, don't really make all that much of a difference. With that said, you will still be hitting higher damage Fell Rushes, and as such, if that is what drives your boat, then look no further. Another good choice would be to drop either Netherwalk or Burning Hatred in order to get Isolated Prey. If you want to make a Fury building focused build, then you will want to drop Netherwalk and get this. Now Fell Rush will give you Fury every time you strike only one target. It's nothing crazy since mostly you will be using Fell Rush for mobility. However, it also increases your Chaos Nova stun duration by 2 seconds when striking only one target. Neither of these effects is crazy, but put together they make a decent talent. I really don't recommend it, because first, you will never want to hit only one target with your Fell Rush. When you proc Unbound Chaos, you will want to dish as much damage as you can with it, and that means hit as many targets as possible. Also, most of the times it is much more beneficial to hit multiple targets with Chaos Nova, and as such, this talent becomes close to useless. I will also talk about Rage Fire. I know that some people like to run this. Personally, don't really recommend this. This talent is very unreliable, it procs when your Immolation Aura expires, and you have little control over that. As such, many times Ragefire will go off, and you will have no one nearby to hit with it. With that said, I heavily recommend you to use the build exactly as I have it. Burning Hatred with Tactical Retreat makes your entire gameplay so much more fluid, and Netherwalk, even though it's not as good as it seems, it still is a useful ability. You just have to get used to when you should use it and when you should avoid it. Also remember that if you press Netherwalk again, you will cancel it. That is something that you must know and you must be aware of, because as soon as you're ready to get in the fight again, there is no point in sitting walking around being useless to your team. As soon as you're ready, use its mobility to get to your target, immediately cancel it and give him hell. Something else you might be noticing is that I am no longer using Unrestrained Fury. The only reason I use this is because every time we used Dive Beam with Blind Fury, we would get out of it with 120 Fury every time, unless of course we had gotten interrupted. But now that we don't have Blind Fury, we truly don't need this. With that said, still, until you get used to this build, and how much Fury generation you'll get from it, feel free to still use this, because you will for sure be capping your Fury sometimes. Just don't worry too much about it. As soon as you get used to the build, that will no longer happen, and when you get to that point, when you are fluent with the Demon Hunter ways, then and only then, you can drop this. And now that you have dropped it, you have 2 extra points to spend. You have a few viable options. At the moment, I'm choosing to take Lost in Darkness, because both Rogues and Feral Druids are S+++ tier classes. They are beyond overpowered, and as such, we need to take any small edge we can against them. As for the last point, 3% parry chance won't hurt, but hey, since we are now almost as squishy as a Red Paladin, this is something. Another very good option would be Long Night, increasing your darkness duration by 3 seconds. Darkness is an amazingly strong team-wide defensive cooldown. Increasing its duration by 3 seconds can very well win you the game. However, as you approach higher ranks, you will notice that everyone just gets out of it and resets the fight. Nonetheless, 3 more seconds on darkness can be good, and as such, you should consider this talent. Also, for those of you who like sigils, which you already know is not my case, Sigil of Misery is a pretty good choice. If you like its playstyle, then use it. I just really don't believe it fits the Demon Hunter gameplay. This ability is completely out of place, but hey, if you enjoy it, then don't mind what I said and go for it. The last 2 options you have are 2 Fury Generation variants. With this build, you really don't have any Fury Generation problems, so you really don't need this. However, if you love Chaos Strike and you just can't help spamming that button, then by all means get both of these and have fun doing so. Now that you understand how the build works, let me show you how to use your burst with it. Your light burst window will look like this. And by now, you will notice that I didn't use Throw Glaive before I beam. The reason for that is because we no longer have Serrated Glaive. And as such, you will use your Throw Glaive outside of your burst window, so that you can use your entire 6 seconds of Demonic on the 2 abilities that actually get magnified by it, those being Blade Dance and Chaos Strike. Now I will show you the heavy burst rotation. It is pretty much the same thing, we just add the hunt to it. And now you have noticed that I use the hunt during demonic. The reason I do that is because the hunt is our hardest hitting ability and I want to make the most out of those 10% extra leash during metamorphosis. However, this should only be the case if you actually need the healing. If you are full HP, just Feldblade again and use an extra Chaos Strike. And that's it guys, thank you so much for watching another one of my guides. I truly hope you enjoyed it. This is my new favorite build, and as such, most of my videos in the near future will be using this. Of course, everything is subject to change, and me being addicted to theorycraft everything, it is highly likely that I will eventually come up with something else, but for now, this build is for sure the way to go. With that said, both my previous builds are still very much viable. The reason I've made 3 different build guides is because, as I always say, the game is all about having fun, and I want each and every one of you to have a build that makes you happy. And that's it guys, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't yet, please consider subscribing. As always, stay safe, stay strong, and I'll see you in the arena.